Yay, hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Looks like we're
Welcome.
online.
All
Lovely
right,
to see
so
you.
lovely to see you. So I'm introducing you now. Amazing. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We're talking about piercing the veil, and I am so happy to be here with Colin from the Menorca Consciousness group, talking life, the universe, and all things metaphysical and out of the ordinary and fun.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tjoni. And I'm going to introduce Tjoni now from Luxor in Egypt, and we're going to do the same. I'm always interested in what you're doing over there. You're kind of bringing sentient beings together, aren't you?
Yeah.
They sound brilliant. Amazing.
We've got like a big cosmic cauldron here, and we're bringing all of the beautiful hearts and spirits together to create and heal and connect and enliven and invigorate and listen deeply.
Yeah.
It's good medicine.
And listen deeply. Yeah, beautiful. And we've got, thanks to you, Tjoni, we're organising, I may as well put it in now, we're going to be holding a retreat out in Luxor in the end of March into April. So,
beautiful. Yes.
Oh, there we go. Channeling and Trance, 25th. So I've been looking forward to this, Tjoni, so thank you once again for joining us. You're going to tell us what we're talking about tonight then?
Okay. We're talking about piercing the veil.
Oh, what is the veil?
What is the veil? All right. The veil to me is whatever has been brought down in front of us that is the form of brainwashing, that is not brainwashing our minds, that's brainwashing us away from whatever senses we have that can receive and process information outside of the five senses. And from my perspective, it's basically been shut down and we've been locked in for about 6,000 or 8,000 years. And once we get past that, which I feel will be in about 13 months now-ish, then we're going to be able to actually tune into our other senses or bring them back online and process the information and abilities and resources to be able to really fully co-create as fully realized, amazing, wonderful, generous, connected, integrated human beings.
Yeah, stunning. Beautiful. Yeah. So how many thousand years? 5,000, you say, probably?
It's about 6,000 to 8,000.
6,000 to 8,000 years.
Yeah.
It makes the mind boggle, doesn't it, to think that there's been a veil of that nature for that length of time. Absolutely boggling. So I'm just going to say hello and welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us. You're very welcome. We will be taking some questions in a short while. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get them fed through to us and hopefully we'll try and answer them. So piercing the veil, I think it's interesting in it because maybe there's more than one veil.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the trick. Maybe what's been held over humanity for all these eons of time or however long it's been. Because one of the veils I clearly see is the veil between two worlds, almost what we can say between dimensions. That veil what a lot of spiritually minded people, and when I say spiritually minded, I mean those who connect between spiritual beings and the earth, souls what have taken the transition will come back and start communicating. That veil there between the two worlds in that respect. When I look deeper into the veil, I see something entirely different. I see along the same lines as what you've probably described, Tjoni, that this veil, almost an etheric veil, not the correct word, but which as we expand, as these spiritual awakenings and this shift and event and expansion of consciousness unfolds, seems to be piercing that veil of awareness. So maybe in one respect, we're both talking about the veil of awareness, I should imagine. Maybe. That's where I kind of start seeing things. Well, going back to where we've come from, as in, if it's been going on for thousands of years, can you describe some of those aspects, what's been going on?
Well, I think from perspective, but before we go there, just to come back to where we are at the moment, to me, we've really seen the first maybe level of piercing the veil during the last few years of the COVID narrative, because that when we talk about, say, brainwashing and things like that, we often think of it in terms of brainwashing by the media. And the programming that has been happening over the last, few decades through television and through mainstream media of all descriptions, actually through advertising, through so-called news, through all of these outlets that are basically consciously or subconsciously, but still relating to the processing of information in our minds. That all of those forms of information have been kind of manipulated in order to generate a specific narrative that then we as a collective take on as reality and then project that out.
Yeah.
So it's like we're being fed what they want us to create.
Yes.
So that to me is kind of like the first step of piercing through it on an information level. And, so just coming back to the most fundamental level of people, finally starting to question Big Pharma and finally starting to question certain governmental institutions and certain so-called health institutions. And, I used to say the reason why there's been so much kind of backlash and anger towards those of us that have kind of steered away from that mainstream agenda is that you can't turn over one stone without turning over the whole path.
Yeah.
You can't start and then stop. It's like once the gates open, you just have to keep walking, and that requires looking at every single facet of our world, from education to media to building to food to pharmaceuticals to clothing, to like you literally can't shut down, or you can't take anything at face value anymore, because we realize once we start, every single aspect has been weaponized. And so that's purely in the physical. But then if we look at so that's what we would call sort of the disinformation, right?
Yeah.
But then to me, piercing the veil goes deeper than that, because we also have disinformation on the metaphysical level. And so, this is where discernment and having an academic mindset is applicable not just on the internet and not just in what we read and write, but also from the messages that we're getting from the non-physical energetic realms, because there's just as much in disinformation there, if not more so, than what's in the physical world. And so I feel like, we kind of need to start there just to get that mindset of applying that academic questioning kind of processing of information when we are doing the deep work and receiving inspirations and receiving, deep information, of being able to question that in order to, discern if it's really appropriate and what it's feeding. Yeah. So that to me is what the veil is, that it is really on very many levels. Yeah. I feel we have many, many veils on as many types of energy bodies that we're actually inhabiting.
Yeah, I would go along with everything you've just said there, Tony. It's when I've experienced, it's almost like it's multifaceted, and exactly what you've just said. Once that door's opened, there's no closing the door. Because as soon as we close or attempt to close in the door, once we've seen something, we're going to step back into denial, and then we're in trouble, because prior to the door opening, I always believe the mind is relatively innocent individually. Sorry, because they're waking off a certain vibration of awareness, almost what we can refer to as the 3D mind, or the third dimensional awareness. It's limited by its own expanse. But as soon as an event takes place, psychic, spiritual event, whatever we refer to it as, and a multitude of them can take place, that door opens. And if somebody tries to close it, they're in a dilemma, because they can no longer be in denial and go, oh, I didn't see that, I'll just carry on with my life now. The door's open, and it's like, okay, I've got to walk through. And exactly what you've said, once you walk through, that's it. It's an ongoing journey. It's non-stop after. And then go into those multifaceted aspects of what we're experiencing by, well, as receptive beings, so to speak. I believe we're receptive beings. And we have these massive antennas, which is our sensitivity. And the system is feeding all this information back to it in order to, I'm going to use the word suppress and control, therefore ultimately control, and dumb down the nature of the mind of each individual, and collectively as well, obviously, by any means they can. And they'll try any trick. They're the biggest tricks to go in. But that there's an acceptance inside me that this is almost like the cosmic, the cosmos has played this role. And he said, okay, look, there's a journey here. Sorry, and everything is in its right place, including all the awakenings, what's taking place now. So once humanity or mankind, or the collective human civilization awakens to a certain point, that will be sufficient, that we're never going to come back this way again, because it's done, and it's of a low vibrational frequency and energy, and it's dense and heavy and burdensome. It causes so much suffering, internally, externally, in so many ways. And then as we look at where we are now, this transitional period, and trying to dissolve. I mean, obviously we know everything starts within us. So then we go into the stillness of our own awareness. Hopefully that keeps the strength and light of who we are shining to such a degree that we can walk this path relatively safe and protected and unhindered. And yet we know we're under constant barrage by most of that what you've described, and we know more. And then when we look at, okay, so we're looking at the plane, the earth, what I would refer to as the earth plane, the physical plane as we understand or perceive it generally. And then we're looking at the energetic planes, which we may refer to not just as a spirit planes, but these other dimensions what exist, and where there's opposing forces taking place there. So I mean, if we stretch it, we can say, okay, at the moment, what we've got is, and I'm hesitant to use the word. I'm trying to find a different word than the one that's in my mind at this minute. What we've got is a conflict between two types of energies on a different plane, and I think that's where the discernment must be used at that moment, because there's beings out there walking this plane unseen by a lot of people, attempting to cause havoc and influence minds, innocent, naive, vulnerable minds. And I think at the moment we're at this most delicate point where, because the world is awakening and individually people are expanding, their consciousness is expanding, we know this, and as it expands, that's the point where they've got to be very, very careful and use that discernment, because we know as we expand, we start to sense these other realms and other dimensions. And we've got to ensure that the beings, energetic beings, spiritual beings, cosmic beings, light beings, etc., what we believe are coming from the light, is such that that is correct. Because the term I would use is the lower realms. We've got beings, mischievous ones, and worse beings, trying to come through onto the physical plane and influence as many people in a negative manner as much as they possibly can. And this is where I think at this precise moment we're in that delicate, precarious place. And I believe that's why correct spiritual teachings are so important now, because there's so many vulnerable people opening up. They don't have a lot of knowledge of this nature because it's always been suppressed because of what's been taking place for over thousands of years. So it's been contained, and that information has been withheld from them. So I've opened up, and it's like, what do I do now? And they're kind of shuffling around in the dark, trying to find a way as to what is the pure truth, so to speak. So,
yeah, and I think that there's the challenge with that is that, you know, coming from a space of engaging mainly in the physical and then starting to go within and starting to have experiences, it can be very easy, especially initially, to think, well, this is all happening in here, therefore it must be my truth. And it's very easy to get in and start having some kind of blissful or mystical feeling experiences, and then starting to become attached to that, and then wanting to have more of that, and then sensing or feeling that that is a truth because it feels good. But there's just as much addictive substances energetically as there are physically.
yeah.
And there's a lot of beings that will, you know, we have false flags in the physical world and we have false flags in the energetic world.
Yeah.
And so it can be very easy when you're coming into a path of self-awareness to have things going, but look at these pretty lights over here, you know, tugging at you. And so we can really be in a tug of war. And the other thing is, so many of the spiritual teachings have been really manipulated and distorted. And a lot of them also, even the ones that are still pure, they were of a particular time, and they were of a particular frequency. And so they're not necessarily, I'm not saying that they're not, but they're not necessarily relevant to us now either.
Yeah.
And so, not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I feel like I might have said this to you previously. I feel like rather than the teachings, the most important thing for us right now is to be able to tune into our traumas and our hurts and our triggers and our attachments and all of that stuff, and do the deep emotional work, and, you know, doing what we can through various practices to clear that, so that as we are adventuring into what can be a kind of tumultuous metaphysical terrain, that we're aware of ourselves, that we can be aware of, you know, what might be tugging on ego, you know, what might be triggering me into wanting to create some kind of relationship with some entity out there because it makes me feel important or like a chosen one or special, or maybe I'm finding the path to enlightenment. You know, anything that comes in and that makes you feel bigger than you are. Anything that whispers into your ear, you're so special. It's like, oh, run.
This is so true. Yeah.
And so, you know, even when I'm working with people doing, you know, psyche work and stuff like that, especially when we're starting to clear out entities, like parasitic entities, and when we're starting to clear out like old like curses and oaths and things like that, there's so much stuff that's coming in that's wanting to keep you down and keep you bound in those old patterns, that I keep people's focus purely on their own body, because we need to fully inhabit ourselves while we're doing the deep work, because so many of the so-called spiritual practices send us so far away from ourselves that, it's like leaving the back door open in your house. Anybody can get in. And so, full embodiment to me is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really good point, I think. Really, very, very important point. This aspect of spending time in Buddhism, interesting enough, and this fits with this area of the topic at the minute. Spending so many years in Buddhism is all about internal work, and spiritualism is about external work. So it's kind of very interesting to see the Buddhist mind as an example, not like completely, but as an example, the Buddhist mind can focus its concentration quite sharply on one particular aspect and take that journey within. So the mind comes into focus within itself. The spiritualist mind or the spiritual mind can be all this kind of floppy, airy-fairy, dancing, all this. The mind is all over the place. I found this very interesting. And I think the truth is in the middle again, as always. I just think the truth is in the middle. We've got to do the internal work, definitely. We've had conversations recently about exactly what you've just said, exactly what you've just come out with, Tjoni. That we've got to apply some degree of, I call it self-awareness, I think, and self-analysis. Sorry. If we do some self-analysis on a daily basis, as an example, at the end of the day, you've gone through your day, you've met people, you've spoken different ways, etc., etc. There's been a multitude of experiences in that day, and then on the evening you get back and you go, okay, I'm just going to take time here. I'm just going to self-analyze where I was, what was going on, and I'm observing my own mind and my responses and reactions to what's taken place today, especially in my interactions with people. And we can do that with our conscience. We can kind of get close to our conscience when we're doing that self-analysis. And I find, and I've always found, that's our biggest guide in how we interact with people, because then we know there's been an aspect about us, maybe our ego, maybe an aspect of our head, maybe an issue what we've been carrying, what's had a reaction to something regarding that day, where we could have then gone, okay, I need to reflect on it, I need to get inside, I need to heal and dissolve and transform this energy. And for me, this has always been possibly one of the top 3 biggest things we should be doing on our pathway. Looking at and helping clear or trying to dissolve those previous issues, what's within our field of energy. And as we do that, and we open up to other dimensions and spirit planes and cosmic beings, so to speak, we've got a greater sense of clarity. But we've also got something else. We've got a sense of detachment going on that we're not grasping, we haven't got attached. And I say this very respectfully. Being involved in spiritual matters for so long, especially in the area of mediumship and psychics, etc., as the mind is progressing, some minds, it will develop some kind of attachment to a spiritual guide. And if that guide is then to leave, there's a sadness and a sorrow and some suffering going on in that person. That's obviously, we know that's as a direct result of their own sense of attachment, what they've yet to clear and dissolve. So what you're saying is so important for our path.
And it feels like, they in shamanism, they talk about walking in 2 worlds. And so I feel like even doing the spiritual work, we need to be able to split our attention or at least hold 2 worlds at once. That is to hold a full awareness of every single square millimeter of our own skin,
Yes.
especially the back of the neck and the spine. But the back of the neck to me is like key. And so that we're fully in our body while we are also holding these other realms as well.
Yeah.
And you know, the back of the neck is so important. I was talking to a friend about this, and we were talking about exorcism, and he was saying that, you know, priests that are going through the training to do exorcism, their training is 20 years. And it's not how to do the exorcisms, because the practice itself isn't that difficult. It's all about discernment.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And I didn't know this till recently, but they actually have a cross on the inside of their collar on the back of their robes, because that is where parasites come in.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, like I've had experiences here in Egypt when I'm about to red pill someone, where I've just literally felt I feel demonic entities as kind of these really slimy black sluggy things that are really disgusting, and they kind of flicker all around the place, almost like aerial octopuses or something like that.
Right.
And I'll just feel them going around and then bang, trying to get in here. And so I know straight away just to fully inhabit my nervous system and just push out and be really present, so that the back door's closed, basically.
Yeah. Interesting. Very. It's like we've got to self-development and self-awareness is equally important as opening up, expanding into other realms. We've got to. That's the tool. That's the safety ground to come back to. So if this is in a good space, completely, and like you say, every aspect of us is kind of aware and clear, then we can sense correctly those vibrations. And there's a clear difference between a being of light and a being what comes from the dense planes, from the lower planes. There's a very distinct, definite energy about both of them, where you can sense the light. And I get a lot of people. Somebody recently said about false light a few months ago.
Have a lot of conversations about that.
And it's like it's interesting, very. But with enough discernment, you see straight through that anyway. You're going to detect that let's say discount being, well, want of a better word, discount itself. And
I think where the self-awareness comes in. Sorry, because when you're aware of, especially getting a sense of your electromagnetic field, when there's a shift that doesn't feel right in that, and it's so subtle, so we have to be disconnected enough from how it might be playing on ego and stuff like that, to then be able to be still and centered and get a sense of our own energy bodies and go, oh, is anything actually being, you know, sucked away here?
Yeah.
What am I feeding?
Yeah. Well, exactly. And it's funny because mentioning the field, the electromagnetic field, big one for me. Love it, because we know everything is made up of the frequencies and vibrations, and if we can develop to a point of stillness, and not so much stillness, if we can develop to a point of clarity, then we can read clearly. And it's ironic, isn't it? They're so close and so simple, because we're trying to achieve clarity, because it's that clarity what's going to make it clear to us what is trying to influence and be, or not just influence us, inspire us. We'll go on that one, and then we've got the clear mind to decide. So this is interesting, and I think this matches really where we're at the moment with what we were saying previously earlier, that we're at that conjunction really, and in this next short period, that's going to become more and more active over the next 12 months, I believe, clearly, if not a bit longer. So,
yeah,
brilliant stuff. Brilliant. I see. We've got a question already.
Oh, in your experience, how would you describe the pathway to more refined spiritual discernment? From Y. Isaacs. I feel like we're kind of talking about that already. I guess the easiest way to go a little bit deeper in that is about a little bit more about personal experience. And I'm just trying to buy time while my brain tries to think of some.
Yeah, it's like, give me a minute, they're coming through now.
Yeah. Have you got anything just straight off the top of your head that you're feeling with that right now?
Well, I think, I can jump in. It's how would you describe the pathway to more refined spiritual discernment? Clarity. Seek clarity within your own awareness. That's because that is so important. We're undergoing a process, and we know as the healing process takes place and the transformation of the past within us continues. It's a bit like this is the house or the room, and we're clearing out. So naturally, what's going to happen when we take objects out of a room, the room becomes clearer. There's more space, and it same applies to our awareness and our mind, our consciousness. That as we clear these things, these aspects, especially we can use the word issues and traumas, etc. at the moment, because that's the big thing at the moment. We're literally taking things out of the room, or we're transforming it, and that's making a clear space. And it's that clarity, that clear space, to the point where if we can clear as much as we possibly can, our awareness becomes highly sensitive. And that's when we've got exactly what you're saying. Why we've then got refined spiritual discernment, because our sensitivity, born out of that clarity, can then detect what's going on with the energetically within and around us a lot better.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Did you get any through then? Did you have time to get your brain into it?
Yeah, kind of. So I guess for me, like I touched on ego before, and I mean, we need our ego as in the ID, but I'm talking about the ego from the over identity of what we think things are, and that we base our self-worth on the way that we think things are. So to me, being able to question everything, like all of our beliefs and questions about ourself, our ideas around the world, the constructs that we think we're in, both physical and non-physical, being able to question all of them of, where did this come from? And is this really feeding me? And is it serving me? Is it serving me by propping me up? Or is it serving me by actually just releasing me to be okay in kind of the unknowing and the messiness of being human? I feel a lot of my discernment has been around letting go of needing to know, and just really being in a position of, I don't know what we're in. I've got no idea what this construct is. We have lots of ideas. We have lots of notions that are coming through via movies that to me are just like, a lot of those are just little bits of truths. Yeah. We know that the news is made up of stories, and the movies are made up of lots of little truths, and they have to reveal their truth in plain sight in order to maintain free will cosmically.
Yeah.
So, I think just being okay in the messiness and the unknowing and the not having a stable foundation of even what reality is, and just being okay with that, so that we can be in a position of really turning over every single stone.
Yeah.
And saying, is this really appropriate? And I really feel that, when I just so feel we're not going to know what we're in for another 13 months.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that approximate timeline is just so strong.
I can't wait.
Nobody told me that, and it might be a complete fabrication, and that's okay too, because I don't have to know. I'm just sharing my my thoughts and sensations on things. But I'm not gonna subscribe to them and adhere to them unnecessarily, because I also don't need to be right. So just be in the mystery.
Definitely. It's enjoying the journey, because if we spend time worrying about the journey, we're not going to enjoy it. So we may as well in the mystery, just let it mysteriously unfold and take it as it unfolds. If we're equipped with different aspects, such as a bit of a clear mind, a bit of detachment, as long as love is in the center point of it, and all these beautiful aspects, as it ripens and unfolds, there's such a beautiful aspect within us as we see it and sense it and become aware of it. And not knowing, it's true. This goes back to what you said earlier, Tony, in a way, which is this syndrome, what the ego can present as if we're doing something exceptionally special at any certain moment and above and beyond it what anybody else is doing. And it's, we have to say, it's like, okay, we need to settle and dissolve that aspect and just go, this is where I am at the moment. This is what's happening. Have that acceptance. For me, I have to say, walk in the light as such. Be aware that the system which is in place, we know is dissolving. It has been doing what it's been doing to us. And have that, what we've just been discussing, discernment. We've got to have that sense of discernment. And I think just to chuck something else in with why Isaacs, if I may, another thought occurred to me. To refine discernment, spiritual discernment, detachment always helps as well. Detachment is quite better, because once we get emotionally involved in something, i.e. emotionally, mentally, energetically attached, it blinds us. We become, our vision starts tapering inwards again instead of keeping it. And detachment keeps some degree of space around our awareness.
And I think what you said before, just about being in that center point of love, you said that just as in my mind, I was thinking actually the being aware of fear. So quite often that attachment comes out of the fear of not knowing, of not having a foundation. And so if we're having any experience that creates fear, rather than shying away from it, spending time on the fear of really looking into that quite deeply. And, whether you have your own tools or whether you need to work with somebody else to get through it, because, every single experience that brings up some kind of fear, unless obviously, a useful fear, like if, a dog runs out, well, you don't want to go, well, I'm not afraid of you, dude, while you're getting eaten. Okay, so we don't want that. But, unnecessary fears, they're little gemstones actually, to be able to go, actually, there's still something here. Maybe there's a fear of simply not knowing. Maybe there's a fear of being not in control. There's so many different fears. So walking in the light, but also spending time in the shadows and shining the light on those, and not being afraid of, those dark aspects of our humanity, because that really is, where the pearls are.
And
that's so.
Sorry.
And so, that's not to spend time dwelling in there unnecessarily, but to spend enough time in there being fully present in those darker spaces that they lose their grip. Because as soon as we have those shadow aspects of us that have been unaddressed, if there are nefarious energies around, they will see those. They're like beacons, and they will latch onto those. So, coming back to, we've spoken plenty of times now, I think, about, clearing out the emotions, clearing out the traumas, doing that deep shadow work. That to me really helps with being able to process all forms of information with more clarity.
Yeah, totally agree, Tony. So are we? So what we've got now? That was we've got 3 more aspects to go through.
Well, we're going to cover them all really quickly. So we were going to talk about like where are we coming from, in fact, and I guess the easiest way to do that is to kind of go backwards a little bit, because the more recent history is kind of a little bit easier to point a finger at. So I guess, for instance, some of those examples are not that long ago. Medicine was a good thing. Like, it was there to heal, it was only what until like the early 1900s or so, before certain organizations and big families that we won't mention came in and started to basically turn medicine on its head, and they took things like chiropractics and naturopathy and all of the what we now call alternate medicine, which is actually the real medicine.
Yes.
And said, no, now that is not licensable, and now that is actually outlawed. And most of the most effective real medicines don't cost anything. They cost virtually nothing, but they've all been demonized. And meanwhile, our supermarket shelves are full of poison parading as food. Every single thing has been turned upside down. It's the same in our energy. We've got so much free energy, but what are we given? We're given all of the stuff that's emitting dreadful radiation that's causing all sorts of health problems. We're using fabrics that are created out of plastic, so people are absorbing them into their body. Women are told to use antiperspirants so that all of the lymph nodes can't flesh themselves out. I mean, like, every single aspect of our world is designed to poison us. And if we look at history, well, we've got no idea what our history is now. Look how much of our history has just been absolutely destroyed. And so then we have all of these different things, like different theories popping up, and with a lot of apparent science coming in to back it all up, to confuse the hell out of us, on just the pure nature of this realm. I mean, I don't believe in the mainstream nature of this realm, but then we're given things like flat earth theory that have so much science attached to it, but that was just created as a psyop, but then just because it's not one or the other, that doesn't mean that it can't be something else. That's just a couple of things. When we go back, just everything has been kind of turned upside down. And why is that? It's to keep us in a state of lack, into a state of struggle, into a state of being cut off from our creator, whatever that is. And the why, well, there's a lot of theories about the why. There's a lot of theories about genetic mutations going back. Some of those theories go back thousands of years. Some of them go back tens of thousands, even millions of years. How would we know when all of our records have been destroyed? So all of that is to create confusion. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we've come from. We don't know what we've been capable of previously. One thing that I do see, though, as an example, is that some of the people from more tribal cultures that haven't adhered to the Western style of, or the Western lifestyle for so long, seem to have incredible other abilities. I think I mentioned dance as one. The things that people can do with their body is phenomenal. Or the natural healers, the people that understand the deep medicines that are around us in the stones and in the plants and in the animals. There's just so much medicine available, and so much deep wisdom, so much technology. Like, I've heard of technologies, of frequency type technologies and things like this. So many of the native cultures have within their personal records interactions with the star beings who brought them technologies. And I've heard of certain people and certain technologies, and people have said, well, why don't you actually produce these? And they're like, because there's not enough critical mass, and we just need to put out one of these and we'll just, we'll get our throats cut.
Yeah.
So, there's so much suppression of all of this kind of stuff. Free energy technologies. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So I think that what we've come from and what we're coming out of is just thousands of years of enslavement that makes us believe that if we want to create something, we've got to work really, 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 really hard. And I don't think that that's true. I think that once we really are, tuned in and tapped on, as Abraham Hicks used to say, and I have my doubts about them now as well. So please don't don't quote me on that. But just to say that I think we will ultimately tune into the space where we can just think and dream and intend, and when we're open, that the cosmic powers that be can come in and co-create with us with so much more ease, and we don't have to have this endless fight just to be able to survive on the planet on which we were born. No other animal.
That's right. And I think we're exceptionally close to it. Tjoni, I think when I venture backwards through in that limited awareness what I have of the past and history, going back, so-called written and presented history, which has been the case, which we know is exactly what you've just described. When we go further back and imagine evolution, ourselves as a species evolving, I just think we're just so limited, because unless we can place ourselves back there instantaneously and have that awareness of what was taking place, which I know I do believe we have that possibility. I then think, okay, there's a couple of aspects here. We've come from whatever, however we was created, and I do believe we created ourselves. I believe our own awareness created this body we're in, and it's always created every other body we've inhabited. If we believe in previous incarnations, it's done the same. And so therefore, when I look at previous incarnations, which is a very delicate subject for me at the moment, because we perceive past lives and past incarnations as going back in a linear line, and and then we're going, okay, wait a minute then, because if everything really is existing in the present, like there isn't any, when we move beyond the frequency of this time as we understand in this third dimension, time and space, once our awareness has gone beyond that, and we start perceiving that everything is happening in the present, then what are these what we call previous lifetimes? So we can only say, well, they're happening simultaneously as we're in this body. There's those bodies, and when we say parallel universes, etc., whichever way we want to perceive it. And so we go, okay, so we've gone from a linear aspect of going back timelines to the past, and yet we've got an alignment, spontaneous alignment, with previous, what we refer to as previous lives, what may not be previous lives, that are happening in the present moment, where it exists in the here and now, so to speak. This is where it all starts to become interesting and intriguing for me, because we can say, well, I know what I did 2 days ago, 2 hours ago, 5 weeks ago. Okay. But I believe we're perceiving it with this ordinary awareness. If we perceive it on a deeper level, let's say a more refined sense of awareness, then we're going to perceive it totally different. And you go, okay, this is where it all gets interesting. And yet somehow if we go with a grounded kind of aspect of our awareness and go, okay, according to what we're seeing, according to what's been presented to us in the history lesson, so-called the official history books, etc., we know we've got to either dismiss them all or read between the lines minimum and read what isn't written in order to find out where we have actually come from. And I'm going to use your words. I believe we're actually star beings. And I believe we've created this who we are in the moment. And I believe we're about to meet. This is going to clash totally. I believe we're about to meet star beings because I feel that they're very present at this moment in time, and that energy is building up and building up. And I think at that moment, or as we go into that space, one thing I think we're going to be able to bear witness to, maybe more experience, is the truth of history, what history has actually been like on this planet, unfold before our very senses, so to speak. I don't even want to say unfold before our eyes. We're going to sense it, you know, and I think that's just literally going to be a huge game changer. Or one of the things what's going to be a huge game changer, because I firmly believe in what you've just said, that we're almost at the point where when star beings do come in, once we've not, and I don't mean we've got to heal everything, but once we're at a point where most things are healed and we're kind of in a safe place, they will then say, okay, here we are. And that co-creation, which is, for me, when I even think of the words, never mind speak of that co-creation with star beings or cosmic beings, whatever it may be, the world is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I know I've drifted a bit, sorry.
But we're talking about star beings. We have to drift. But my feeling is that we definitely, I feel like we've been spliced somehow at some point in time.
Did you say spliced?
Yeah. And not necessarily every single human being. I feel like a certain percentage of star beings have come in and somehow been spliced in order to help shepherd humanity through whatever this shift is. It's just a sense that I have. Of course, I don't have any proof of that. But yeah, I feel like they're so close as well. But I don't think that they will show themselves until we are ready to co-create with them. You know, in the same sense that I don't feel like as a collective we're going to gain, say, financial freedom until we're in a space where we can use, you know, abundant resources for the betterment of the collective rather than the betterment of the self.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these things that are on hold, it is just a case of timing. And hi, Lynn, do you feel that star beings are already here in human form? Yeah, definitely, absolutely, 1000%. And I feel like, you know, there's so many of the young children that are coming through that are just these incredible, you know, fully self-actualized, gorgeous, just beautiful souls, you know, like really, really incredible. And one of the curious things about this too is that most of the people I know that are really so dedicated to the betterment of the world and so passionate and driven to really leave behind a world that's better than the one that they were born into. That generally the ones that didn't adhere to all of the mandates a few years ago, they're all just like peppered all over the world, almost like they were stationed there. Just almost just like energy vortexes or something like this, just holding everything in place. And once we get to this proverbial flip, then they will be able to physically start to congregate and to generate strong, cohesive physical communities. And so I feel like so much of this online discussion amongst all of us is really generating this cohesion in these networks, so that that when we do have this flip and the resources become available and the truth and the discernment all come out, that then the time will be right for us to come together and co-create the next bit. So yeah, I definitely feel that they are. Yeah.
Me too. I feel the same, Lynn. I think Lynn knows my point anyway. Definitely, we can, okay. What do you think that, well, thanks for these questions anyway, Lynn. Thank you. What do you think that the role of the star beings here at the moment is?
Well, partly what I said about just like holding the fort, basically. Also, I feel like it takes a certain level of non-attachment to an earthbound reality in order to see beyond it. And so the other thing that I notice with the, unjibby-jabbed, let's say, and all of our kindreds, is that there's been a complete lack of fear. And I think that complete lack of fear partly comes out of seeing through the narrative, but it also feels like it comes from the sense that we're kind of just visiting. It's not all it is. It's not, we're kind of it, but not completely in it, or in it, but not of it. So there's kind of the compassion, but the not disconnection, but non-attachment. And so also the ability to see beyond the sense to be able to create beyond what reality has presented to us so far. This is very personal to me. I'm sure it is, because you're no doubt co-creating everything as well.
So I'm just gonna chuck a couple of bits in there, because that was beautiful, even just listening to it. Tjoni, thank you. Star beings, what's the role? Are they here? One thing what stands out to me is when we talk of when there is talk of multidimensional beings, as in ourselves being multidimensional beings. I think there's an aspect where we can say we are multi-bodied: physical body, ethereal body, astral body, etc., mental, emotional. So we've got these multitude of bodies, which are in effect forms of energy, energetic forms, if you like. When we look at that as an accumulated mass, and I'm going to just kind of chuck something else in, just, I don't want to say for the fun of it, but the humor is in there. When we throw in previous incarnations into that mix and go, okay, let's see if we can get this perception of we are multi-bodied forms of energy, yet without form. And all our previous incarnations, which may be happening in the present simultaneously to all this, is happening here and now. Then where do we look to find star beings? And I have this concept. It's more than a concept, it's one word, sorry. I have this innate belief that every soul is of this nature, in so much multi-bodied, multi-dimensional, made up of multifacets of infinite awareness. And I think this is one of the reasons why and it goes back to the very beginning of this conversation, Tony, what you said. Do we actually know who we are yet? And we can't fathom it out. We've just, not with an ordinary mind, well, not with a subtle mind, maybe on a completely deep frequency in the essence of our souls. Maybe then we can find that truth of who and what we are. But until we get to that pinpoint, I think what you've said previously is we're not struggling to find it. We're only struggling.
Oh.
We think it is. But we're just kind of going, okay, we're trying to piece this cosmic mosaic together, and we're limited to the pieces we can find at the minute. But up to now, it's actually looking amazing for us. You know,
and I'm quite happy in the mystery, you know, just enjoying, you know, this very long, slow labor, this, you know, this long birthing process to basically, we're all giving birth to ourselves in effect, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is a long process. And by the time we get to whatever it is, let's be able to look back and go, wow, like every single aspect of that was so extraordinary. Look what brought us here. Yeah. You know, there's so much magic and richness in this moment right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the future, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the journey. It's really beautiful.
The present.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lynn. That was a beautiful question. Thank you, Juan, and anybody else. Thank you to everybody who's joined us. We're going to wrap the session up. So amazing. Thank you so much, Tony.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for hosting these discussions.
So, yeah, I don't know. I always feel they're so informative and beneficial. So, not so much informative, because that's more, they're just beneficial, I think. And I think
exploring the possibilities.
Yeah, push the barriers. Yeah. Yay. And I like the bit about giving birth, where it's like we're giving birth to ourselves. I've thought to myself, I'm pleased we're not giving birth to each other, because I've got a few headaches and I feel like I've been elbowed by a couple of them on the way out. So it's like, oh, sorry.
Leave the birthing parents off to the woke mob.
Oh, Lynn, sorry I missed the beginning. I have a lot more questions.
Please come and tune in with us next time, and we'll be around. We'll tune in again soon.
We will. We'll be back, Lynn.
Thank you.
And thank you, Francis. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Y. Isaacs. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Thanks, Y. Isaacs. And thanks, Eva, for holding the fort again.
Yes, most definitely. And if anybody is interested, you can find all the information about. Oh, Margaret, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Anybody interested, which I'm sure some of you are, regarding Tony's work and what she does, etc. We'll put everything out. And there you go. Beautiful. Thank you, Eva.
Thanks so much.
So are people okay to contact you if they need to, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. If anybody wants to contact Tony, if anybody wants to contact myself, please don't bother. I've got enough on the phone.
Just tune in on your cell phone.
Just a bit of psychic humour, guys, on my camera. We've got a beautiful retreat. I'm going to announce it. Have you got anything coming up in the near future, Tony? What you'd like to?
I do, but there's no particular dates for anything just yet. But I am going to be doing some more Spirit of Business. I just finished a 4-week Spirit of Business series of workshops here. And that's tuning into basically the energy template of your business so that you can work with it rather than on it. And so that's been really beautiful, and it's clearing out a lot of work on the ancestral realm, on the field of business itself, and on the personal realm. And so I'm going to be doing another one of those that will be physical and online. So that will probably be in about another 6 weeks. And that will then be leading into the Spirit of Business 3-day retreat that I'm going to be doing a few days after your retreat that you're about to you're about to release.
Well, in collaboration with.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yep. So thank you so much, Tjoni. Our retreat will be, well, you can find the details on Menorca Consciousness Group. We have so much more on, guys. So visit the Facebook Menorca Consciousness Group. There's the channeling in trance. It's going to be specifically channeling and trance. There'll be minimum 3 sessions a day between 5 to 7 days. We're going to be seeing, thanks to Tjoni. Tjoni's been so upset. I can't even say it anyway, because it's just, you've just been so helpful, Tjoni. Accommodation, arranging everything, sites to different visits to different sites, etc. But it's mainly totally focused on the channeling to hopefully communicate with other beings, light beings, so to speak, or star beings. We can say star beings on this one. We mentioned star beings anyway. That's actually who's been inspiring it. So we're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to meeting Tjoni in person. Yeah.
Oh, I can't.
And I can't do this host bit. I don't like doing the hosted bit. It don't fit me.
Okay, I'll do the hosting.
Yeah, you do it.
So that's it from us. Thank you so much for being here, dear friends. And till next time, be well and keep dreaming the good dream. Ciao for now.
You see, natural. I'm so fake at it. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Lots of love to everybody.